My name is Jerke Verschoor, and I'm the director of the Netherlands Education Support Office. Great to see you all. I'm working in Russia on internationalization in education between the Netherlands and Russia. I'm very glad to see you all here in our first massive online open course ever, our MOOC. In this course, you will learn more about entrepreneurship and new venture management. A wide range of topics will be covered. Funnily enough, today Russia celebrates the Day of Entrepreneurship. З Днем предпринимательства. We believe we brought together renowned scientists and experts from both countries to give you a satisfying learning experience. You will get a good introduction, insights and tips from researchers, investors, experts in innovative ecosystems, and also entrepreneurs operating internationally. It sounds promising. A few practical notes. We do apologize for the re-registering, and you will need to register for each separate session. This is due to network safety and ours using this platform. But further, we will be keeping track of your questions in the chat during the presentations, and we will ask the experts the most interesting ones to be discussed. So please feel free to comment in the chat. Further, all lectures will be recorded and can be seen until the very end of June, when also the assignment is due. That is, if you are interested in getting a certificate, but even more importantly, receive actual feedback from the experts. More info on the assignment can be found online, and a separate mail on this topic will be sent out in 2 weeks' time. Now, our office did not do this alone. We were joined by the Dutch Centers for Entrepreneurship, whose chairman, Professor Dr. Hein Roelsema, will lead the third session. But we also got great support from the Netherlands Embassy in Russia, helping us reach out to Russian experts and who in general have been a great support to our office, who have been working here for more than 10 years. So it is with great pleasure that I hand over the floor for a welcome word from His Excellency, the Netherlands Ambassador to Russia, Mr. Rob Zwartbol. Rob, you're welcome to turn on your camera and microphone. And let's see if that works. Obviously, we practice this, and there he is.
Yeah, hi. Jerke, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please speak up.
Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. And I'm very proud to be here, actually, in this webinar. I'm not sitting in from Moscow. I am the ambassador there, but I'm in Holland, in The Hague, which is my hometown now. It's for medical reasons, not connected to Corona, by the way, but I hope to be back soon in Moscow. Now, this webinar is very timely and very close to our heart. The Netherlands is a very entrepreneurial country. I mean, if you look at the relationship with Russia, we're the second investor, we're the second trading partner with Russia. Worldwide, for instance, if you look at agriculture, we're the second biggest agriculture producer, and we're only a very small country, about the population-wise the size of Moscow City. So why is it that the Netherlands has such an entrepreneurial spirit? Why are we leading in sectors like healthcare, agriculture, innovation, etc., artificial intelligence? Well, I'm sure that the professors and other experts will tell you and share also a little bit of the knowledge we have about doing business, but also to learn from you, from the Russian friends, how you do it and how we can find synergy. Talk about synergy. What I always found amazing about the Netherlands is that, I call it the Dutch diamond, that we don't see entrepreneurship or business, the business sector, as sort of an isolated sector. We think that the cooperation between business, government, NGOs, so non-governmental organizations, grassroots organizations, and education, science, is crucial. So the Dutch diamond, every side of the diamond has its own color, but together it's very strong. So I would say that the entrepreneurial spirit of the Netherlands can be defined as sort of the different sides of a diamond. Well, I hope you will find this seminar, this webinar series very promising. I look forward to hearing your comments through Jerke if necessary, you can always call me or mail me directly, and I'm sure Nefik Neso will provide you with my details. So good luck today. Thank you for being here.
Who will start the presentation. And afterwards, we're very happy that Mr. Alexey Parabuchev, the CEO of the Moscow Agency of Innovations, will join us. But first, please, Aard, you are very welcome to start your part of the presentation. So if you can turn on your camera and your sound.
I suppose.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, okay, it's an honor to do the first lecture here in this very interesting series. I saw the total program, and the total program is really showing many facets of the Dutch Centers of Entrepreneurship and of the research and projects being done here. My topic for today is to talk to you about entrepreneurial mindset and skills for growth-oriented entrepreneurship. And I will tell you a little bit about myself here. So I'm Aard Groen. I'm Dean of Entrepreneurship at the University of Groningen, Center of Entrepreneurship, lead at Center of Entrepreneurship. I'm Professor of Entrepreneurship and Valorization at the University of Groningen. Until beginning of this year, I also was professor at the University of Twente, and I did a lot of other things. One of the things maybe is interesting is the Venture Lab, where actually we developed a program to help people who want to set up growth-oriented, knowledge-intensive companies. And by now, about 500 people, 500 companies were formed in that program, so that works quite nice. I have also a little bit of a history in Russia. Since 1999, I've been working with MEFI in Moscow, and later on also with the High School of Economics, especially with Professor Cheparenko, also with several other people, setting up, for example, a summer school for research and entrepreneurship, but also helping in building incubators and accelerators programs. I work at the University of Groningen in the north of the Netherlands. In the perspectives of the Netherlands, a large university with about more than 30,000 students, of which about 1/3 actually come from abroad. Also quite some Russian students are here. There are also about 2,000 to 3,000, or more closer to 3,000 PhD students. Also there are quite a lot of Russians, and also in the staff of the University of Groningen we see already an interesting collaboration between people from Russia and the Netherlands. It's a big university, broad. You can study in principle any topic here, including entrepreneurship, of course, but also chemistry. For example, 2016, Professor Veringa from our university won the Nobel Prize for his chemistry research. And so, yeah, it's a very broad university. So I was going to talk about entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial growth of companies. And maybe one first central question is actually, can you actually create and build entrepreneurs, or are they actually already there and they will just do if you are an entrepreneur, or you can actually be created to become an entrepreneur? Huh? Are entrepreneurs born or made? Another question is, are opportunities created or found? And also this is a very important question. Actually at the moment a very hot discussion in entrepreneurship literature. In what way opportunities can be created, or in what way opportunities can be found. I will talk a little bit about that today too. And also I will talk about what entrepreneurs, how entrepreneurs are different from non-entrepreneurial or less entrepreneurial people, and what goals entrepreneurs actually have. You could talk, these are very big questions for entrepreneurship research, and give an idea about where this discipline is actually all about. I see already in the chat that some people think, well, they are born. I also think they are certainly born, otherwise you would not be here. But indeed, they have to develop in their life, and there are a lot of competencies which can be, which absolutely need to be learned for an entrepreneur. And I personally always like to compare it to musicians. Nobody doubts that if you want to be a trombone player, I do play trombone, but not on that level. But if you want to be a trombone player on the level of the Concertgebouw, which is the best symphony orchestra of the Netherlands and one of the best of the world, then obviously you have a lot of talent for that, but you have to study about 10 years to be on that level. And I think that this is also true for entrepreneurship. You may have some kind of talent, but you have to develop it. And by the way, entrepreneurship is in many cases also teamwork, so you don't need to be able to do everything on yourself. So let me continue. So what is entrepreneurship? This picture tries to depict, actually on the outside you see a lot of drawings, of ideas maybe, of designs if you want, and then through the bulb of the bright idea, you see there the realization in a city. I think that's what entrepreneurship in essence is. It is developing an idea into the realization. And what is particular about entrepreneurship is that an entrepreneur tries to create value. And the value is something which is very important. I think a lot of people think that entrepreneurs are in there for money. Well, money obviously is quite important, but research has shown that actually most entrepreneurs want to realize their idea, their vision, their mission in life maybe even. And for that, yes, you do need money. Okay, there are always, as I also see in the comments, there are good ones and bad ones. I'm afraid that you have in every area of life, also in entrepreneurship. But it's about creating value. I will come back to that later. So if you see what is entrepreneurship, it's a marathon. It takes really a lot of perseverance. You need to continue, even if you have setbacks, which happens now and again for every entrepreneur, you have to continue. And it may take, in many cases, especially knowledge-intensive entrepreneurship, in many cases take really years to grow towards a normal, already big company, so to say. That may take really years. Some companies can be a bit faster, like for example, software development sometimes is relatively fast, but usually also that even takes 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And what kind of marathon? Actually, in many cases, it's an ultra marathon. It takes really long. But there's a big difference between these marathons and entrepreneurship. You see here a map of one of the ultra marathons. And these ultramarathon walkers, runners, they know exactly where to go. They know when they will have to go up a mountain. They know when it will go down, so they can rest a little. They know when to stop to eat a little and then go on, because this type of 100 to 150 kilometer runs, you need to take a break now and again. But they know it on forehand. They have thought it totally through. And a problem with entrepreneurship is, certainly if it's a bit innovative, there is not really a predefined known route. If you look at this picture, somewhere halfway the map, the entrepreneur may have to change the route completely, make a pivot, as we call it, like in the dance world. You also see a pivot to really change your direction. That makes entrepreneurship more difficult than managing an existing, already in full practice working company or organization. So what you have to do, what you have to work with is uncertainty. It's the future shape of the environment is not really knowable. And actually you can also maybe shape it by the entrepreneur in an on forehand not very well knowable way. So it's not easy to plan. You can think about nowadays our business sectors during the corona pandemic. Many entrepreneurs, but also existing companies, are thinking what to do, how to make our business go after the corona crisis. And actually, to be fair, we still not really know what is possible, what is not possible, what would be very risky and what is not so risky. But uncertainty means you can even not calculate the risk. You have to see what happens and prepare for that. So the question is then, how do you build up your strength for such an unknown journey? And that's actually where we talk about entrepreneurship. You can do a lot of preparation. You need to do it within a certain context, because the nature of ideas is changing, the environments may change, and also over time, the possibilities for your entrepreneurial process may change. So if stuff is so uncertain and context specific, can we learn anything? Or should we just say to people with the talent of entrepreneurship, go ahead, do your thing, and we will see how successful you will be? Well, our answer obviously is yes, you can develop an entrepreneurial mindset, and yes, you can develop entrepreneurial competencies. Like if you compare it with training in the marathon, you can train for becoming an entrepreneur, but it also means, like in sports, that actually you have to do it. So if I talk about that, what is then an entrepreneurial mindset? Well, in principle, it has two elements. It is the ability to be entrepreneurial and the willingness to be entrepreneurial. And that is here as defined by Shepard and others, ability and willingness of individuals to rapidly sense, act, and mobilize in response to a judgmental decision under uncertainty about a possible opportunity for gain, for creating value, I would say. And it's a judgmental decision is a very important concept here, because it's not, you cannot calculate it totally, but you have to judge, is this actually going to work or not? You have to work with the point of uncertainty. And for Mises and Frank Knight already talked about that an age ago, more or less. Real uncertainty means that you have to do judgment. You cannot calculate the situation, but you have to develop actually the situation and then see how things work. And now and again also make changes which you maybe would not have expected. So what are the steps in entrepreneurial processes? Well, actually what you would like to come is from the one hand, the discovery of an opportunity, or maybe the creation of an opportunity. Let me say a little bit about the difference between those two things. The discovery means that actually so much in the market, there is an opportunity, there is something, there's a need, people need something, and you just have to find it and you make something which can actually solve that need. You evaluate that need, you exploit the need. Creation means that actually the need may not be there, at least not known by the people in the market. And then you have to sort of educate the client and the system around it, like, yes, this might be something which we need. Give you one example. There were there's market research done in the 90s of the last century, where people were asked, would you like to have a mobile phone? And then people said, what do you mean a mobile phone? You mean I can be called every moment of the day? So my boss can actually call me any moment he wants? No, please. And why would I? I already have a phone in my house. So no, I don't need a mobile phone. Well, by now we know, of course, that is not really realistic. That was not realistic. It was actually something which, it is created by Nokia and a number of other companies, that we actually have this need. Now have the need. I think most people who watch this lesson, I expect to have a mobile phone and to use it actually quite a lot. You may even be watching this on your mobile phone, which is an application which was not thought of in the beginning of making of mobile phones. The first Nokia phones, you could not do this kind of stuff. So discovery, creation, evaluation of the business idea, creating a business model, and bringing that into exploitation. It looks very linear, but it's not always that linear. So you have the discovery, creation, evaluation, it's recognizing, it's assessment of the feasibility of the idea is the second phase. And actually also this is often a phase that you talk to other people, to potential clients, and that you try actually to see if your idea fits to the idea of the people you think are in your market. And this will be discussed later also. There are several processes how to do that. But the main idea is that you cannot just make an idea and think, well, I like it, therefore everybody will like it. That's something to think about. So creating a new venture looks more like this type of process than a one linear process. It's an iterative, non-linear, feedback-driven, conceptual, and physical process, because many times you have to make machines or organizations. So therefore, yes, you have to test a lot, you have to ask questions a lot, and with that feedback, you feed your own process again. So whatever the context is, entrepreneurship is what makes a difference. If you stay on in that very center of the three axes there, so you are a self-employed person, for example, selling some flowers you made in your own garden maybe, then yes, you are entrepreneurial and you have a small business. But we, in our research, we are looking especially at entrepreneurship what can grow. And we expect to look for, entrepreneurs look for growth potential, quite often work with innovation, and have indeed ambitious strategic objectives. That together makes actually an entrepreneurial venture really entrepreneurial. This is also an idea what is often going wrong. We see a lot of people working in a company and they are really busy, like the guys here with the cart. And then there are other people who think actually about how to do one. And that can be indeed done by if you make innovation, if you think about working on your company and in your company, the combination of that will work towards a sustainable business. But if you only work in your company, then the chances are actually quite large that you are working very busily, but that something is happening in the surroundings and environment which makes your business becoming obsolete. So it's important to innovate and operate at the same time. For that, you need 4 mechanisms. So I now get to the competency part. It's about being strategic, and being like the CEO of a company. It relates to vision, mission, creating influence, maybe even having power. Of course, you have a CFO in a company, so the function, the competencies there are much related to the managing of money. And also, even already in the startup, although there's not much money involved, maybe, at least most of the cases, you need to be very precise in how you manage the cash flow and the cost. Then you have the CMO, or the social capital, the social dimension. This is the market-oriented side of the team, and together with the CEO and also the COO, which is the operations officer and the technical officer. You build the technology and operations to bring into the network of company. And these 4 mechanisms, the strategic mechanism, the economic mechanism, the cultural or organizational mechanism, and the networking mechanism, those 4 together are actually necessary to build a company. If one of these 4 is missing, it is not possible to build a sustainable business. It may work a little while, but it will die because of incompleteness. So what's in there? If you look into the entrepreneur, but also into the enterprise, if you look at the idea, it's the scope of the business, defining the scope of the business. So in the entrepreneurial process, that goes from the basic idea, what I talked earlier about, to the strategy of an existing company, the startup or the scale-up. And so it goes from ideas, assessing opportunities, strategic processes, also comparing to competition, for example, is a very important one, and to create a business plan or a business model. That's the strategic essence of the entrepreneurial process. The skills is the part where we try to develop a pattern of an organization. It's about the culture. Are you a modern, flat organized, interactive company, or are you hierarchical? It depends totally on what are your values, what are your norms. And what has research has shown that startups and startup entrepreneurs, they already define the culture of the later company to a very high extent. So even if you are working in a very small team, it is already important to make the seeds for a productive culture in your organization. So you have to work with certain systems, quality systems, environmental system, accreditation systems. It depends totally on, of course, in which business you are, but those systems also need to be developed. And then you have to develop your network, so the social network context. You build, of course, contacts with clients, with suppliers, with experts and colleagues. And these 3 dimensions together, so the scope, the skills, and the social network, together create use and create the money part, where you talk about the scale. So what type of size would you like to grow with your company? Is a very important question. And also, if you are in an innovative company, usually you have first cost and later the gains. So you have a bridging period, and that development period needs to be bridged by, for example, loans or subsidies or venture capital. And that again is very depending on in which situation you are. I'm quite sure that for example, in the setting of Skokovo, for example, I know that a lot of stuff of that is arranged, also some other universities, and also the Russian venture company is, of course, there in Russia. So there is quite a setting. And in the Netherlands, there is another setting. There's other actors who do the same thing. So it always depends where you are, what you can use. So where does it actually start? Well, as I said earlier, is it the entrepreneur who pops out of the egg and is ready to go, or is it more like an idea? It could be both. If you look at it, can start very early. This little girl, about 5-6 years, already has her own business. It's a sort of a social business, but she works very early on already at the entrepreneurial talent she has. Then you have guys who start something because they have a need themselves. They want to meet other people, and maybe girls in this case. I don't know exactly. But anyway, that was one of the first reasons to start Facebook and then develop it. Of course, now it's a broad network and helping us to keep in contact all over the world. Or maybe your background is that you are a mother of a kid with a very rare disease, and you would like to actually find a solution for this rare disease, and you see that the existing pharma companies are not doing it, and therefore you build your own company, which this lady on the picture actually did. You can also be a doctor. For example, the Jaipur Food is a very well-known social venture case, which was made in Jaipur in India, where a surgeon actually saw that his fellow citizens quite often could not get a good prosthesis for their leg, and this problem exists a lot in India due to certain illnesses. And so what he actually did was making a new prosthesis for under the leg, for the underleg, with what people can actually run, climb into trees, work in the rice fields, and it cost almost nothing. So this is quite interesting. This made also a business, you could say, all around the world in usually relatively poor countries, but it is a very valuable new venture, I would say. So what is it that entrepreneurs need to have from a mindset point of view? Well, on the first hand, it is positive attitude. And they have to live up to certain norms, but also take into consideration norms. And what they often have as a thought is they feel that they are in control. I think it's not always so that they are actually in control, but they feel like it. This comes also up to a well-known problem with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs could be quite a lot overconfident, so they perceive that they are in control, but actually they are not, and that now and again leads indeed to fail. So where do ventures ideas come from? Well, if you look around this model of the head, you see social networks, private and professional experience, prior private and organizational knowledge, events, changes, trends in the external world, what we now call external enablers. The last one, of course, think about the corona crisis. It's a change, it's an event, it's a last change probably in the world, and it leads to all kinds of new businesses being developed at the moment. And yes, this is all happening on the one side, but if you are not searching, if you are not alert, if you're not creating something, you may know it, but you may also not know it. You may not do anything. If you don't do anything, no venture idea really will happen, of course. So the question could be, how much are ideas actually worth? Like this one. I suppose all of you know the selfie stick. What a really nice business opportunity. Is it at the moment a business opportunity? Was it maybe 10 years ago a business opportunity? Was it an opportunity when it actually was developed? Well, we found this actually in a book from 1995 about useless Japanese inventions, the selfie stick. It was actually made in 1983. This guy on the right side of the picture, for me at least, yeah, for you probably too, the older guy, he is a guy who invented this, but still with the old-fashioned cameras with a film. And actually people did not use it. Why not? Because this compact camera, if you click, you cannot see if you are really well on it. And if you click, you are disturbing your film. You only have 30 pictures on the film, so you have to be careful. So people didn't use it. But of course now, with our cameras on the phone and our digital memories, we can make 10 pictures, and actually we can actually see on the phone what type of picture we are making. So now, actually, this is an opportunity. But in 1983, the patent was filed in 1985. Well, very sorry, but this patent did not pay off. And indeed, it's not about ideas, it's about making the ideas happen. Entrepreneurs need confidence. As I said, you work in a certain environment, and therefore you need to build your confidence. Oops. System. Yes, there it is. So I'm sorry, this is usually a picture, but that didn't work. So here you see, on the one hand, you need to plan a lot. If you plan more rounds, you have more activities, you have more efficient decision making, you can also change easier. You need entrepreneurial experience, because if you have some experience, you can actually see other opportunities and learn more. So the chance on better entrepreneurship is by learning, by doing. If you have industry experience, you know what other people are doing in the industry, you know the alternatives, the alternative cost, and actually all those things together, you have a startup self-efficacy, you know that you can do certain stuff. Those things together, according to Dimov in 2010, actually can be an operational venture. It seems entrepreneurs who create operational ventures are more confident about the opportunity as they plan early and often, check the alternative ideas, and are more equipped for opportunities in a specific industry. So if you know your setting. So what does this mean for a student who starts up a company? Well, totally in general, it means that will be a difficult case, because a student usually has no experience and usually knows not very much about a specific industry. On the other hand, if you are a student of a good university in Russia or in Netherlands, you have learned something very specific, very new, maybe you have done some research, then you can actually start. But often we see making combinations with experienced people. And then you see the advantage of experience and the advantage of newness and daring people. So if you look, actually you search, you execute, you do customer discovery, you have an idea, you go to the customer, you talk to the customer says, yes, I like this, or he says, if you would change it a little bit like that, I would like it more. You pivot, so you change your idea to some extent. This goes on a while on the search side until you go and you think, okay, now I'm certain enough that the customers will like it. Now I'm going to work with the customers, and then you build your execution to make your company work. Oops, this goes too fast. One back. Potential other important questions are, in many cases, does it fit the rules? Compatibility. To give you one example, you all know Uber, the taxi company. The Uber company in Netherlands and in Germany is relatively small or not existent at all because of the rules for taxi drivers. It's impossible to be a taxi driver in the Netherlands if you do not have a permit. Therefore, people who just have a car and start driving and connect to Uber, like in many other countries where Uber is big, is actually in these two countries and also some others much less possible. How to get the needed information? You can think about, as a startup, let's do a lot of market research. Well, that's quite costly. So therefore, we talk about this this customer journey, customer search processes. They can be small, and you pivot and you go further until you have your first you find your first traction. And if you have more traction, then you can also actually plan an investment route, because then you can actually show, okay, how does this work? Do I have enough political weight? In some countries, also quite important. Can you actually defend your position? Pay for that. Who will pay for it? How much will pay for it? And what impact am I going to make? The paying part is quite important, of course. Many people ask in the market research to potential customers, would you like this or that? And then the customer says, yes, I would like. But if you get to ask, what would you actually like to pay for this? And yes, that is a problem if you don't ask that. So the assessing of the opportunity is about the market, about personal, about feasibility, and the extensive value it may have. Is it worth doing? Can I do this? Is it doable from a technological, market, and economic perspective? And really, yes, do I feel I can do this with my team? This all looks like only one person is doing this, but I would advise in many cases work in a team. And that leads to value creation, value delivery, value capture. I like this one, the PAL V. You see on the left upper part, the old design. They have been doing quite some search. That was actually the picture in the black one was maybe also almost 10 years ago, and the red one is now. And it has changed, it has developed. It's a picture. It's a car which can also fly like a helicopter. So you see, that's quite a particular thing. But to develop this took 10 years, but it worked, and they now try to make it really into business. So to conclude, I think more or less, the entrepreneurial mindset is about ableness and willingness. You need to be able to use external enablers, the new things in the market or the new things in the technology. You need to think about timing. You need to develop your strategy and maintain it and develop it. You need to develop a culture. You need to develop your network. And you need to be able to develop and execute your business model. And to do all those things, you actually need to be willing to be confident, but not overconfident, to take some risk up to an affordable loss. So what can you actually bear as a loss? Not go deeper than that, because then you go bankrupt and have trouble for the rest of your life. Be innovative. You have to be market oriented. You have to be willing to be competitive and efficient. And the last part, but not the least, you have to be ethical. Business is sustainable business is an ethical business. So altogether, it's recognizing, designing, and creating value. That's where entrepreneurship is about. Thank you.
We're very happy to have him with us. He's the CEO for the Moscow Agency of Innovations. And he will give his view on this entrepreneurial mindset. And after that, there's time for a discussion either between Professor Groen or Mr. Parabuchev. And of course, there's time to answer questions from the attendees. Please write your questions in the chat. We are assembling them and we'll also be able to answer them, if not this session, then possibly other sessions. Alexei, we're waiting for you. I see you're coming on. Yes. You can hear us?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, I will turn off my video and my sound. The floor is all yours.
Sure. Thanks a lot for this invitation. It's always a pleasure to take part in such collaborative projects. And since Moscow Innovation Agency has a long history of collaboration with Dutch Embassy and projects that we have undertaken together, I would like to draw a little bit on our activities and what do we do, first of all, and to refer to the brilliant presentation that have given to us just a couple of minutes ago. I think that I will start with the last one. Actually, in our line of work, we meet a lot of different kind of startups and creative teams. And later on, I will tell you a little bit more about how you, as Moscow students or Netherlands students, could participate in our activities. But I would like to add up a little bit to the portrait which was described of the entrepreneurial mindset. First of all, I think that taking risk is very important. And probably it's one of the most important parts of this kind of business activity in comparison with traditional business, of course. Taking risk and assessing your chances to win, and taking risk despite the fact that those chances could be low. One of the major problem which normally a young person faces when he wants to initiate an enterprise is that he doesn't really know the market. So, and it's very important. It's very important to understand what kind of pain or what kind of problem you're going to solve. So in order to help in that field, in order to help to build the understanding of the market, the understanding of the industries, we started a certain project or program which is called Leaders of Digital Transformation, and it is designed for people who are ready to answer the requests which are formulated on the part of big businesses. So it is organized in the form of hackathon, but it could be just a challenge. The idea is that big business, well, not necessarily very big one, sometimes it could be just startups, formulate the challenge and offer everyone to make their solutions, to offer their solutions to that challenge. Just recently, we have finalized one of those activities. This one was organized with Rostelecom. I think it's one of the major Russian telecom company and technological company in general. And it was about the creative and very active answer to the challenges of COVID pandemic. Well, everyone knows that it's a very complex, economically, it's a very complex time in which we all are living right now. And many businesses, many people have to somehow reshape their habits in order to adequately answer the challenges. So we asked several big Russian companies. For example, I'll give you an example of one of the major retail company, which is X5, Peterochka in Russian. So they wanted young people to help them to make the customer experience, so to say, more secure, and to elaborate a program or to design a device which could help to negotiate with the seller in their shops without any contact payment or other necessity to touch something. And I would say that it's a general trend right now to create, so to say, contactless economy. So that was the task which was formulated and set forward by the representatives of this company. And we collected teams from all around Russia. Those were IT specialists and students, students in design, students in economy and marketing, which were trying to create the projects would actually answer those challenges. And finally, some of the projects were selected, and now they are implemented in different pilot sites so that to test how it works. So it's a very good opportunity to make a start. And people took the risk because they invested their time. It wasn't the question of money in the very beginning, but still they invested their time, their energy, and it repaid. So I think it's a very good habit which should be cultivated to take risks and to take the new opportunities without even knowing what's going to be the outcome of that activity. So the second very important point, which was mentioned before, is teamwork. Teamwork is crucial. Well, I would say that nowadays it's not only about entrepreneurial field, but in science, in engineering, in any complex human activity, you have to work in collaboration with others. And to have the knack, to have the knowledge and soft skills to build that collaboration is very important for the success. Well, going back to this activity of leaders of digital transformation, for us, it's a teamwork. And in July, we will announce a new line of this program. So we will announce 10 new challenges for you in which you could take part. And it's going to be a teamwork with the prize at the end. It's about 1 million rubles per each team, which would successfully solve the question, or which would successfully solve the challenge, and which would successfully present the solution to the jury. So stay tuned. You could always check our activities at our website, both in Russian and in English. It's Moscow Innovation Agency once again. So creativity and technology. That's the last but not the least point. I would say that it's one of the most complex things, because many people who take part in our programs or projects, they think that, well, they are not technicians, they are not engineers, they are not IT specialists, and they think that in order to start a startup or technology entrepreneurial entity, you have to be technician by yourself. But it's not true. The truth is that you have to create the idea and to find the right people who will help you to implement that idea. And quite often you could be, I don't know, PR specialist, you could be in marketing, you could be journalist, you could be anyone. The key point is that you know the demand, you could somehow create or define what would be the outcome of your project. And you could build the team of devoted people, your future employees around you. And together you could actually create a very, very interesting and very impressive results. So those three major pillars, taking risk, teamwork, creativity, and technology, I would say those are the cornerstones for creating a new entrepreneurial life and getting new experiences in your life as well. Just to sum up a little bit and to finalize, I would like to say that many students, not even students, many young people in Russia do not really know what is it startup, how to work in startup. It's not so popular. Unfortunately, it's not so popular as the Netherlands, and we do not have so many startups, even in Moscow. As well, not as many as I would like them to be here. So we've got a very specific activity, very specific project, which is oriented towards people who are interested in gaining the experience of working in startup, but not founding them. I mean, not being the founding fathers, so to say. So we offer young people a possibility to solve a small problem or to solve a small task, to fulfill a small task for the startup, and to be invited to go as a, so to say, free employer for a certain period of time, and to experience, to gain a real life experience of working in a startup team, and to feel this culture and to feel this spirit. It's very important to have this personal experience, and I would strongly recommend you to take a look at our website and to enroll in that program as well. Well, I would say that basically that's all I wanted to say, and thank you once again for being today with us.
I would like to invite also back again Professor Aard Groen with us. And then maybe together, Professor Groen has questions to you, but I can already start, Mr. Parabuchev, to you. I have a very practical question. If it's possible to participate in the challenges you mentioned if they are not students, because you addressed students, but quite a lot of the people in this session currently, they're not students, they are employed or they are entrepreneurs themselves. What plans do you have for them?
Well, we do not really have any restrictions whether you're a student or you currently are employed or you, I don't know, you have your own business. It doesn't really matter. You could always take part, of course, so everyone is welcome. And it doesn't even matter if you live in Moscow or in St. Petersburg or in Amsterdam. Actually, last year, we've got a couple of teams, well, actually more than a couple of teams, which came from abroad. And one of the foreign team, I'm not sure, I think from Israeli, they actually won the final prize. So everyone is welcome, as I said. Yeah.
Okay, great. Maybe to kick off the discussion, maybe a little bit between you both. The questions were raised after Professor Groen's presentation. There were a few of them concerning ethical. What is an ethical business? What is being ethical in a business or a startup? Alexei, Aard, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, being ethical, the least is that you are complying to law, and that starts with that. But the base idea of a sustainable business is that it is a business which is creating value, but not at the expense of others. Which, for example, towards the environment, we have the definition. Sustainable means that you are not using the environment in such a way that it damages the environment for generations after us. But that's ethical on the environment side. Ethical is also how do you work with other people, and how do you create value? It is again, it's the genuine making of value which makes a business an ethical business, I think. And the opposite side would be if you try to, so say that very simply, rob actually people. That would be, of course, unethical. Everybody understands that. But in the middle of making money and for yourself and creating value for society, in that combination, there you have to find your good ethical position.
Yeah, well, I think that first of all, I totally agree, and probably I could just add up that value is the key point, because it's not only economical value. It's value means that you really help other people. You help other people to do their job better, or you help other people to cure their illnesses, and so on and so forth. So when you create new product, when you create a new service, it's not only about the costs and effects, but it always has a certain impact on the society. And you should take into account that impact and think globally how it's going to affect the people who live around you. So it's very important mindset. And for us, it's very important to help those companies who tries to remember that. Yeah.
Thank you both. I would like to continue immediately. I will try to merge two questions. The question is, should entrepreneurs be oriented on a global economy when they just started their project? For example, the current economic situation is not very friendly for startups. Should they wait until it gets better, or should they move right ahead? And a question to Aard, but I think Alexei can also comment it, about having a team. Having a team is better than doing it alone. Now, what are the key advices to build such a team? What to look for?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, so somewhere in the middle of my presentation, there was this what I call 4S model, where strategic issues were at the hand, organizational issues, economic issues, technical issues, and network issues. Now, you can imagine, to talk to an example, I have met a lot of people who are, for example, PhD in nanotechnology, and they made a new sensor, and they say, I can make this new sensor, make a new big business. And that's true, the technology they can make, but the negotiations about, for example, making an alliance with a bigger company, the ability to contact people to find information, the ability to operate a company at some point in an efficient way, that is not necessarily the strong point of such a, what I would call CTO. These guys, which I have now in mind, have very good capabilities in developing a technology into a product, but to make it produce and to sell it and all those things, they are not that good at that. So they need actually a CEO, a leader, and a representative of the company. They need a CMO, which is a marketing officer. They need a COO, an operations officer, and they need certainly a CFO to manage the finance. And if there are almost no singular persons who can do all those roles in an excellent way. So therefore, to build your company, not necessarily the first day, but after a little while, if you see, okay, this is going to be my company more or less, you have to start searching for a team. And this is also what for example, we have a venture lab, which is sort of a pre-incubator to accelerator support system. And that's exactly what we do. We talk to people, we help them, we also do assessments. We say, you will be good for that and that role. Would it not be good for you to find somebody who can do the other side of the coin of the business? And then you can build your team. I think that was a team question. And the other question was more about going global immediately.
Yeah, and especially in these current circumstances with COVID-19.
Yes. Now, yeah, obviously at a very moment, it is relatively difficult to go global if you are in a very early stage, because it's difficult to travel. So only that already makes it now, in a particular period, now quite difficult. On the other hand, depending on what you are doing. So for example, I met here a company in Groningen, which is now developing a chip which can test in 30 seconds if somebody has corona or not. Now, that could be a very nice market already, because you could if you make 10,000 of these chips for a small price, then that will be a business. but I think they will have a patent on it, or they already have a patent. They could actually export this relatively quick. So it depends on the opportunity. Some opportunities now, and the strange thing is, Schumpeter called that the periods of creative destruction. So in crisis, some businesses go down. But in the same crisis, other businesses go up. So you need to look, is there an opportunity in this external enabling situation, or is it a disabling situation for your idea? Mm-hmm. And so it means if you do something now, for example, you want to create, let's say, a new software thing for phones. Well, I'm not so sure if at the moment people are really waiting and being eager to do that all over the world, but you could still start in a local situation. And that's also something in general. I think if you are in a certain situation, let's say in Moscow or in Amsterdam or in Groningen, where I am, you can already in your own environment check stuff. And then you can go later on global. And I've done a lot of research on global startups, and we define that a global startup is a startup which is active on on two continents or more within 3 years. So not next week, but within 3 years. So if you now start a business, yes, you can be a global startup.
Alexei, would you care to comment, for example, also from the situation in Russia? Is it better to how to start now in these difficult times?
Well, for some people it's a difficult times, and for others it's a time of great opportunity, and I totally agree. I would say that, well, you know, maybe it's very encouraging and a little bit too, I would say, bold, but still, if you start a startup, you should think globally from the very beginning. Otherwise, it doesn't really make any sense to build a startup. You should start an ordinary business, which is a very good thing as well, but still, it's not a thing that is oriented towards exponential growth. And for us, startup, it's a question of exponential growth. At least it's something that actually responds to the universal challenge. To be more precise about the current situation, recently, like a month ago, we initiated a collaborative project with startup Blink. It's an Israel agency which ranks different startup ecosystems throughout the world. And the third part of that collaboration is UN AIDS. That's the UN, United Nations agency. So the idea is to put on the map all the technologies and startups that help to confront COVID, the current disease. And for now, we've got around, I would say, 30, I think 35 Russian technological companies on that map. And it's not easy to get there because you have to go through the filter of UN-AIDS specialists, and they are very keen in, you know, identifying the solutions that are already on the market and that they're not original and so on and so forth. And all in all, there are around 1,000 different solutions there already. And for them, all markets are open now, because if something is working here in Russia or in Netherlands, for example, as those chips, it's going to work elsewhere. So it's really a huge opportunity. And since it's not clear what's going to be in future, and the economic outline of future activities is quite vague, so some people, some experts think that the advent of hands-free economy or touchless economy is going to happen right now. So it's going to give the huge boost to new technologies, and that would be the very good opportunity for the startup and for the young entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe you can continue on the next question. The question came, a good entrepreneur looks like pretty much the same as a good manager, or the mindset. A good manager's mindset should be the same as a good entrepreneur. Could you both comment on it? What are the differences, if there are any?
Well, well, I could just give the idea of the observer, so to say, because I'm not an entrepreneur by myself. Hopefully, I'm a good manager, but well, you never know. You never know. So the difference for me is crucial, and it lies in ability to create new things. Because manager is a person who could organize a process which is already there. So somebody created the process, or somebody initiated something that was structured by managers. But the act of creation, it's a skill that belongs to entrepreneurial mind. Well, at least that's what I think.
Yeah, I think in essence, I also think the same. What I do think is that in many existing companies, they also encounter different circumstances. So at some point, also managers of existing companies need to become a little bit entrepreneurial. And we call that the exploration-exploitation dilemma. The pure manager actually likes to work on exploitation, to manage a certain process. And a pure entrepreneur likes to work on exploration. But of course, the reality of a company in a certain changing situation is that the reality is that you need to do both. And if I, for example, give an example, Paul Polman, the former CEO of Unilever, he worked all the time that he was CEO on a sustainability type of new business for Unilever. Did that mean that he had no interest in money-making business, which was not exactly sustainable? No. That also went on. And you go on with existing businesses until you see that it is not sustainable, then it may be shut down, but you also build new business. And that's what this CEO of a large company, in principle, did all his time that he was CEO. But indeed, a CEO is something else than a COO. That is also one of the questions I saw in the chat recently. So a COO is an operations officer. That is maybe the most typical manager. That takes care that a process is done how it should be done. Efficient, certain quality, certain timing, everything like that. That's a real hardcore manager. And entrepreneurs are often not so good at that. So as soon as you come into a bit of a competitive scene, you also need to be efficient, and you need to have this COO type of person or team in your company to be sure that you are also efficient. I've also seen several times actually changing after a while. So the first phase of a company is led by a certain entrepreneur, and then it's been taken over by a more manager. And often the entrepreneur comes back and starts a new company. And that's typical entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. And a serial manager goes from one management job to another management job. So I think I think you said enough. That's more or less the difference between a manager and an entrepreneur.
Okay, thank you both. I have one more question. It's about evaluating your idea and to see if it can become a profitable business. And you said, Aard, that you need to study the behavior of your consumers. And the question is, are there any shortcuts about the efficient methodology of how to find out?
Yeah, I would very much like to have such a shortcut methodology to be able to assess very quickly and easily if a new venture is actually a very good opportunity or not so good opportunity. And in some circumstances, this is actually not that difficult. In our program, the Venture Lab North, we see a lot of people coming in with an idea, and then already immediately I can see, this will not really work. I see now a comment also in the chat box. You can make a minimal viable product, and you can start testing that. But you can also do a market research. If it's a more already given market where you want to go into, then actually there's a lot of data on such markets. You can get it. If you come into a support program, I'm sure at the Inno Agency or at, for example, Venture Lab, you can get that type of data. You can also do market research yourself. If you want to do big market research, that's expensive. But in some phases of market development, you need to do that. But in the very early phase of a very innovative product, yeah, then it's more like you make a mock-up or a model, and you start talking to people about it who are potential interesting. One mistake which I see often made is that people think that the user is similar to the client. And I always say the client pays. So for example, in the Netherlands, in healthcare, most of the things which are being bought are bought by hospitals or insurance companies. They pay. The patient seldomly pays. They pay insurance premium, but they do not pay for a specific medical thing. That's the situation in the Netherlands. So if you want to do a business in the Netherlands, in the medical side, then you have to do a stakeholder analysis and look who is actually the user, the payer. And for the user process, you have to do something else. You can do design thinking. For the payer part, you have to do the marketing and the strategy type of tools. And these are really different tools. I see sometimes people make the mistake to think that design thinking is automatically leading to business. No, it leads to a good design, which can be used by users, but those users may not buy it, so you have no business. They also forget that there's competition. Oh yeah, I like to say that one, that's really important. There is this very famous business canvas of Mr. Osterwalder. It's used everywhere. It has 9 fields, and people fill it in, and you see, oh, this will be my business. It looks at the value creation indeed. But competition is not in there. Why not? Well, because in the PhD thesis of Mr. Osterwalder, one chapter was about competition. That's not a very famous chapter. And one chapter was on the business model. That's very famous. But please, if you ever use the business canvas model, it's fine. But also look at competition, because otherwise you will get into nasty trouble if there appears to be nasty competition. So this is, I think, for the process of doing this is not easy. So that's also why in our university, when people, and also people from the region, and also actually people from Russia, if you would like to build your business in the Netherlands, for example, to find out if there is a market in Western Europe, then you can do some soft landing in Groningen in the Venture Lab. You can get a startup visa from the Netherlands government, and you can work under our coaching on that business side, how you can create your business that you maybe produce in Russia and maybe also sell in Russia, but also can do that in Western Europe. You can actually come with us. This type of collaborations are quite possible. This happened already before. And so if you like to make your business, not only in Russia, but also in Europe, you're welcome in our program.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have and I see a lot of questions that will be answered actually during the rest of the sessions. So for all those who are tuning in today, many questions they will come back. The Canvas model will actually be discussed next week by 2 hardcore entrepreneurs, and they will surely not forget competition. Alexei, for you it should be nice. We also get quite a few questions about the agency you're CEO of. So I pinned the website of the agency to the top of the chat, so people can look there for programs that you provide for people who want to do startups. We have questions about technical startups, sustainability projects. One more question for both of you. Is there an example of a Dutch or Russian venture that successfully generates value during recent years? Do you know out of the top of your head?
You mean the collaborative joint?
Not necessarily collaborative between the Netherlands or Russia. It could be just Russian, just Dutch.
Well, you may know Booking.com.
Sorry, Aard, you said Booking.com, of course, which is now very heavily in the news in the Netherlands because they, of course, are losing a lot due to the corona crisis. But Booking.com, indeed, is initially a Dutch startup. It started actually in Twente University, where you also were professor. And Alexei?
Yeah, I think speaking about the same type of let's say, a startup, and it's a marketplace, internet marketplace. In Russia, it is called Avito. Basically, that's, well, everyone knows it in Russia because you could buy or sell whatever you want in there. So it's a marketplace for used goods, for flats, for cars, for whatever. And why I mentioned it, because it's one of the Russian unicorns. Well, actually, we've got very few of them, and it's a very good example. Yeah.
Yep. I think we're slowly going to the last questions, also looking at time, but they're still coming in. And please, all attendees, note that we are saving the chat. We'll come back to your questions in the next sessions. I have a question that came in twice. Is cash flow management generally more or less important than time management in a startup?
Yeah, well, they often are connected to each other. If you are too slow with the development of your product, then the cash flow will also be later. And your burn rate, as we call it, if you have an investment, allows you to work within a certain time period to develop your product, to get it to the market. And if you are too slow, the chance that you get new burn money is smaller. So it's connected. And I would also say that, let's say in the end, cash flow management is more important. Because it's more critical. If you go under a certain cash flow, then you go bankrupt. And then if you are a bit slow, that's one thing. But if you are bankrupt, it's end. So yes, if I have to talk about that in the extreme, then cash flow management is more important. But they are both important.
Thank you. Alexei, one more question to you, because I'll be getting questions about it. Are there any, and I will pose it a little bit differently, are there any limitations to ideas that people can bring forward to your agency of innovations? Or can they cover all topics? I mean, there were questions about, I mentioned it before, technical ideas for startups, sustainability. It's a real issue in Russia now, but is your agency, does it also have programs for sustainable, innovative food products, for example?
Speaking about sustainability, we've got this line of work, and we've got several projects which are connected to that. Actually, we took part at the sustainable annual sustainable Russian Congress, I think, and we organized several sessions about startups. Which decided to make a startup in this field. So it's very important. It is very closely connected to the issues of ecology and environmental, which is crucial to the city. So yes, we would be very pleased to know about the startups or the ideas in this field as well. And in general, our scope of activity is not confined by specific topics, because innovation is about everything. Which very important is just to understand that if we are not speaking about pure creativity, but if we are speaking about innovative enterprises, then there should be some demand or request on the industrial side or societal side, and your ideas should address that request or that demand. That's the key point. So if you could show us that there is such correspondence, then for us it would be much easier to incorporate you in our activity. Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you very much, Alexei. Thank you very much, Aard. Before we close down, and I, of course, want to thank you also on behalf of all the attendees. We have over 300 that listened to everything. That's really, really great. Next week, we'll become even more practical with two very young entrepreneurs. Martin Luxemburg, the director of the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship, one of the leading entrepreneurship in Europe, and Yefim Kalotkin, who studied both in Russia and the Netherlands. He set up his own startup, which has also been suffering, of course, due to Corona. They will both talk on designing business models, on an effective business model. We look forward to seeing you this Thursday at 4 o'clock Moscow time again. We do apologize for the mails you might get via the platform, but we see that it has worked today. Thank you once more, Professor Dr. Aard Groen from Groningen University. Very great that you could be here with us. Thank you very much, Alexey Parabyshev, CEO of Moscow Agency of Innovations. I'm sure we'll meet again in Moscow also. Thank you all those who attended. We're really happy to see you here. Please let us know your comments. We'll work on them. We'll bring your questions under the attention of the upcoming speakers, so they will be answered. We're at your disposal. Looking forward to seeing you all 4 o'clock this Thursday. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for organizing. Great.
Yes.